So if you haven't got your questions in, now's a really good time to get your questions in. You will most likely get it answered if you do put it in now. But time is ticking. And Eric is falling asleep.
I am. Tara, you weren't on when I talked about my awful night of sleep.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw your message that you're struggling with the allergies. I can hear it in your voice too.
It was miserable. I was awake from 2 a.m. until 8 a.m.
I had to do the math to figure out what time it was for you. Can you guys hear me better? I increased the boost here. I don't know if that does anything.
Yeah, you sound very boosted.
Okay. I'll leave that boosted then. Priority boost on. So you got your allergy shots, but you're still waiting for it to build up in your system.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I feel like they might make things worse for a little while because, like, you're just like, hey, your body, have a giant dose of everything you hate.
Yeah.
You're like, okay. You got all the antihistamines in the world, just don't have. It's amazing. Anyway, it is 12:16.
It is 12:16.
In every single time zone.
Yeah, sure.
So
Still got my coffee because it's 9:16 here.
Still got my coffee because that's the only thing I'm drinking today.
I got whatever's in here.
Yeah.
Hot blood.
Reading questions.
No, I don't care. I'll read some questions. So everyone has to hear more of my lovely voice today. I'll ask the questions. Richard wants to know if there are any issues with enforcing password expiration for SA logins, like something may stop working when the password expires. Our auditors want it turned on globally.
I don't like it for accounts where it's the application, the service account, because you're going to have to set a reminder to fix these before the password before it expires. Because you don't want it to expire at 3 in the morning on a weekend, and suddenly somebody's got to work on it. So I don't like it, and at least when I've had auditors at previous companies, you can push back on those auditors and say we're just not going to do this one.
Yeah, for me, it's less of an issue because I don't like letting anyone use SA anyway. I don't let apps use it. I don't want anyone using it. So like,
I guess the question was specifically the SA login. I jumped into just just authentication of SQL authentication.
Yeah, like if it was domain accounts, I would say go to hell because what's that going to change? Yeah, like the domain account. But for SA, I'm surprised that the auditor remark was that they want password enforcement when they should just. Usually auditors are like, we want this disabled.
I know, exactly. I don't even use the SA account, so that's fine if it's going to expire. Usually we either disable it or rename it to another, so it's a different name at least, but disable it.
Have like a proxy SA account.
Yeah.
Has a weird name. All right. Wes. Well, that's not a sequel question. Can we spend the next 45 minutes praying to the Google gods for awesome stuff to be announced at 10 PST? Sure.
What's going on? Is there a conference or something? What's happening in the next 45 minutes?
I don't know. I'm unaware. All right. It's going to be a quick office hours. Kirk is asking the question that he asked yesterday on DB8 Exchange. Idea Analysis is suggesting that he use TempDB and he makes some ANSI set commands and then he alter a global temporary store procedure. Kirk, Tara and I both left comments on your Stack Exchange question asking for more information. Please.
What up, over there?
I can't tell you if you should make that change because I'm pretty sure it's dynamics. That's what those pound ZDP things usually are.
Yeah.
And unless you tell us what the rest of that store procedure does, I don't know if I can tell you to change it. It's a silly question. It's like
probably ignore IDEA here unless you're in control of the software that is creating these because you're not going to be able to make the changes.
Yeah.
It's GP Dynamics.
It is. So I don't really know what you're going to get out of changing that. What's it going to do?
Probably can't even change it.
Sorry.
All right. Michael says, I have an ETL process that runs on 2 servers independently. Each row gets an ID. What ways have you guys used to keep these in sync between 2 servers?
I haven't ever needed to keep things in sync between two servers, besides your reporting and things like that. But you're talking about something separate. But if it's an ID, it's identity column, I suspect you're referring to, then I mean, what people usually do is they reserve identity values on one server and then reserve another set of identity values on the other server, like negative numbers for one server and positive numbers, and then to keep them in sync, you just replicate between the two, bidirectional replication between the two, and there'd be no collisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious what the use case is to have IDs synced for ETL processes on two servers. That seems like something that should come out of that should be resolved whenever during the L to whatever main data source you're going to end up with. It doesn't seem like something that...
I've always worked on systems where we have a single point of truth, right? And then that gets federated out to all the other systems. Yeah. Now, we may have one system and it may be on multiple servers, right? But that bit of data's truth is on that server. And then that gets sent around all over the place wherever it needs to go. So, yeah, having it, is that for speed, I guess, maybe? Maybe there's a lot of data coming in and you've got it being processed in two separate systems. Then you need to zipper them back up. And at that point, what's your alternate key to align them back up again? That's about as best as I could gather for you, man.
Yeah, I don't even know what, since it's running into, it's ETL running in two separate places, I don't even know how you would resolve, what the resolution would be if IDs were mismatched.
I mean, typically you go to the natural key, right? The natural key would tell me if it's the same or not. But not all data has a really good natural key. And if you don't, well, how am I going to zipper that up in with using some sort of made-up ID that's out of the ether of SQL Server?
What's the worst data you've ever dealt with?
Oh,
and
man,
coming up with like relations for or something. What's the worst data you've ever had to deal with?
I think I had to deal with a bunch of large data, like 60 terabyte stuff, but that wasn't bad in itself. I think the worst data I had to deal with was I was working really early in my career, so it had to be over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was weather data coming from the government. And I was given this blue book, right? This thin blue book, and it looked like an exam book, and it had all these formats in it, and you had to figure out which format that you're dealing with, and it was a ton of just flat file data, and it didn't even have an end of line, the whole deal, and it's
I've dealt with healthcare data like that was awful. It's like the healthcare encoding. I forget what it's called, but there's specific encoding that you have to use for stuff that's miserable. Yes. And when I was in market research, we would get all these this time zone and zip code information that was just a nightmare. FIPS codes and DUNS codes.
The codes are a nightmare.
It's awful.
The codes are a big problem of why we have our health problems today.
Yeah, all the electronic records are just. I don't want to touch you. You're gross.
You gross. When we touch you.
It's all gross. All right, let's talk about something else. Let's stop talking about gross data. Michael asks, he would love to hear the thoughts of the office hours celebrity DBAs regarding implementing.
No, not here.
Bucket. I am not one.
Yeah, we don't have any DBAs or celebrities.
You're now our celebrity of people in Poland, saying hi to you and.
Oh. That's one guy from Microsoft. That's not people in Poland.
You're now celebrity level. Richie and I still have to work towards that.
Yeah.
You guys blog more. Just blog more, and you'll soon reach the very heights of SQL.
What I blog about, people don't want to hear. It's I get 10 comments. Brent gets some crazy, hey, what do you think about this? And all of a sudden there's 100 comments coming in.
Well, you got to leave a question at the end. That's some of mine that had a lot of comments are, asking people.
I don't want to ask you anything. Well, what do you think about any framework? I know what you think. Okay, I know. I don't want to hear it.
You get that's 50 angry responses. No one happy.
What, only? Oh, it's a good day.
Yeah, right. All right, let's see here. Anyway, that's not what I was doing. I was doing entirely. Michael says, oh boy. Let's see. Implementing SQL Server database solutions via on-premise database platforms versus Azure or cloud-based database platforms. Things like development, prototyping issues, lifecycle costs, and administrative DBA considerations. Geez, that's like 7 books.
At least.
That's a lot. I mean, Richie, what would you say about the development and prototyping issues of on-premise versus cloud, if anything? You can tell me to screw myself if you want to. I'm fine with it.
Well, I off camera because I don't want to see it. It's different, right? So it's significantly different. Oh, not happy? Happy. I'm trying to click not happy, but
Tell me more.
it's so in the cloud, you're essentially if you're dealing with a pure cloud application that you're going to build in there, and you're talking about services talking to one another, and there's a whole different philosophy that you're going to have to go and develop your application. If you're talking about taking an application and then setting up some VMs and having that run in the cloud, I don't consider that a cloud application. I consider that an on-prem application that's running in the cloud. So there's a lot of things that we say it's in the cloud and it's not really in the cloud type of stuff. I haven't really messed with SQL Server database a whole lot. I've actually messed with Postgres in the cloud a lot more than doing SQL database. So I'm going to have to punt over to you guys about some more of those questions.
All I know is that our clients that are in the cloud are having severe performance issues, especially severe slow I/O. You know, they're not spending enough money on what they've selected for their server and are experiencing pains because of it. It's not cheap to get really good performance out of the cloud.
Yeah. If performance is your number one consideration, you need to either be prepared to stay physical or spend a lot of money on upsized cloud instances, especially for what Tara is talking about. The stuff that is at the biggest premium up in someone else's computer is storage and networking. So as soon as you need to write data to disk or you need to move data from your server somewhere else, you can run into some tremendously slow speeds from both of those avenues, we'll call them, just because it's the cloud disk, if you want the good fast storage. It's not only like when we were messing with Google Compute, it's not only tied into the type of disk but also the size of the disk. So like a bigger SSD means it goes faster. Just like if you set up a 50 gig SSD, you get worse than like SATA speeds. So there's a whole lot of stuff you have to consider. It's a little bit easier if you have a current physical workload that you can compare it to and compare metrics to and know that makes it a little bit easier. But if you're starting from scratch, you're just going to have to be prepared to size up regularly.
Yeah, I think if you could find a small application and then bring it up to the cloud and then do some learnings on that, maybe if it's an application that's not even in production or whatever, and so that you can say, how will this application work in the cloud? It's really hard for us to understand what, if the cloud is right for you without understanding what your needs are. Does it need to be fast? Does it, how much traffic does it get? I mean, what's the performance? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on here. And since you run the app and you run the system, you're probably best to get into it and figure out, hey, will the cloud work for this app or will the cloud work for another app? Is it worth for us to start prototyping this stuff out? And then there's hard numbers, right? So how much is this costing on-prem versus how much would this be costing us in cloud? There's a ton of stuff there that needs to be sifted through.
Yep. Another thing that comes up always is staffing complexity. Up in the cloud, depending on how you choose to provision things, you could either have the cloud taking care of backups and high availability for you and all that stuff, but I don't know if that meets your needs. I don't know if if you need to offload reporting or something else, and you still need to come up with your own sort of solutions there.
Yeah, it's still in its infancy. I mean, there's still a lot of growing in the cloud. It's a lot easier if you're greenfield development. If I'm building something new in the cloud, things get a lot easier as opposed to I have something old and I'm bringing it up. We could code around a lot of different issues because we're actively developing, as opposed to I have this thing, this app that was built to have a server right next door to it, right, talking to one another, and now I'll bring up in the cloud and everything's going to crap. Well, those servers aren't near one another. That's just kind of the way it works up there. And they may not always talk to one another. And you know, if a switch goes down in your data center, everything goes crazy. If a switch goes down in the cloud, they yawn, you know, and they move on. So,
yep. All right. Cool. Renee asked a question that I find particularly odd. I think Tara's going to screech at this one too. Do you know about a way to back up databases besides SQL Server built-in functions? Stuff like copying data files and log files and pasting them.
What are you trying to do?
Stop. Put the database down. Stop. I'm begging you. That's stop with an A and 15 H's. Stop.
Stop.
Whatever backup software you're intending to use, make sure it's VSS aware so that it quiesces the database files, and when it does the snapshot, so that the data files and the transaction log file are at the same moment in time, so that you're not doing a dirty snapshot. And then also SAN snapshots, but again, it needs to be quiesced.
We're not even there yet. Renee is asking about copying and pasting data and log files.
I know.
We're not even at the part yet.
Yep.
So a long time ago, I inherited a process. There was an archival process, and the archival process would go through and it would find databases no longer in use on this awful clown car of a server that had upwards of 5,000 databases on it. It would take them offline, and then it would copy and paste the data and log file, or it wouldn't copy and paste, but it would use an SSIS-like package to move stuff over. And there were times when the data transfer would be interrupted or go awry in some other way. And so one of the files would be incorrect. And so you wouldn't be able to bring the database online because, say, like a data file would have some issue inside it, or a log file would have some issue inside it. And so I really can't recommend enough to not do that at all, ever. Do not. Like aside from the permissions issues nightmare that you face trying to do that, you can also screw yourself up in a lot of different ways. Even if you wanted to do something like zip the files up and then move them, it's still a heck of a problem. You're really just take a backup, or use backup software from a known vendor who does things reliably. Don't copy and paste, please.
Keyword reliably.
Yeah, because another problem with copy and paste is if you have large databases and you use copy and paste, that data has to buffer somewhere, and it's going to be on your server. And so you're going to have this horrible RAM nightmare when you copy and paste. That happened to me once using. It happened to me once using PowerShell. I used a move item command to try to move a 5 terabyte database from one drive to another. You know what happened? The server ground to a halt for about 45 minutes. Nothing else going on in there. That circuit was closed. You couldn't do a snapshot or something? We didn't have that available to us. Fortunately.
So you're telling me you ram so far away?
I did. I ran all night and day. What's your second favorite Flock of Seagulls song?
They had something other than one?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
God. Well, Aha is a real tough one to come up with a second favorite for.
Yeah.
Flock of Seagulls is easy. An astute observer of new wave music like yourself, Richie, should have a very easy time with the second favorite Flock of Seagulls song.
I've been in alt rock the last 2 years, and the Hamilton soundtrack. But everyone knows that.
You have a new wave playlist. You showed it to me, and we argued about U2 being on it.
Especially early U2.
I don't know about that. But no second favorite Flock of Seagulls. Tara, how about you?
I can't think of one.
I love that genre of music, but I don't have the bands memorized, so I'd have to look up who they, what are their songs. I know the band name, and I definitely know their music.
All right. So Space Age Love Song is the obvious second favorite.
Hmm.
Right? In case anyone needs to know, in case anyone is
Alright.
curious out there, that's the second best Flock of Seagulls song. All right. Let's see here. Alex Ozar. Wow. He is almost an Ozar. He executed a long, complex query with a begin train and a rollback in Management Studio, and he clicked cancel. Yes.
It's asking whether or not he has to issue the rollback tran command or if the cancel would roll it back.
The cancel should kill the transaction and roll everything back.
You'll know
as I
if you
know.
try to close the window. Try to close the window, and SSMS is smart enough to know whether or not you still have an open transaction.
Yep. Or you could run SP Who is active and see if you have any.
Mm-hmm.
And go.
Or you could
Or
just,
if you're too lazy to download Who is active, you can run DBCZ Open Tran.
There you go, on your SPID.
Yeah, like the 90s. Just like the 90s.
or you could just run rollback tran yourself.
Yeah, go ahead and run it. It'll just error if you don't have an open transaction.
All right. Let's see here. Ronnie is asking something about logins. Ronnie, that's a better question for Stack Exchange because I don't see an error message or anything in there. So you just kind of asking us to blindly troubleshoot your login issues, which is impossible, sir. Unless it's a SPN issue, in which case go look for SQL Soldier SPN things and you'll find good information. Nick is asking, when SQL Server stops cleanly, is everything in RAM flushed to data files such that the log files don't contain anything important anymore? Just curious. I promise I'm not backing anything up with copy and paste.
Yeah.
So yeah, I believe part of the shutdown process is checkpoints, right?
Yeah, but so any uncommitted transactions in the transaction log file are rolled back, and anything that was completed, get applied. So, but if your transaction log file still has the transactions in them, because that's going to be dependent upon your recovery model, and if it is full or bulk log, then it's going to depend on your log back frequency. It's not necessarily about SQL Server stopping and restarting. That stuff still exists in there.
Yep. Yeah, so one kind of interesting thing you'll see when you start up SQL Server is if you go on the error log and you look at the very beginning, you'll see a whole. You may see you may see a whole bunch of messages like X amount of transactions rolled forward in this database or stuff like that. So that's how you know SQL is keeping track of what's going on. But that's all I have to say about that. Got nothing else on that one. You guys?
Nope.
No, that's
right.
Oddly enough, that's all the questions we have too.
That is. All right. So unless you guys really want to hang out and babble, we can just call it a day here.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. We are leaving 5 minutes early because we have no more questions. But thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. Bye.